Should you pull for Shantotto's FR? Her roles are going to be a magic attacker, imperil, stun, and a debuffer. Her notable attacks: Rage Arrow, her skill 1, it is 5 HP attacks. It upgrades from Elemental Magic Arrow if Shantotto's Rage, her overhead, is 3 turns or above, or if her HP drops below 50%. It inflicts her debuff Accursed Gaze for 3 turns. If the enemy is already inflicted with Accursed Gaze and you attack them with Rage Arrow, it actually triggers twice. To end it off, it is also a high turn rate move. Rage Bio, her skill 2, it is 3 HP attacks with 180% splash. It upgrades from Dark Magic Bio if it's the same thing as her skill 1, if her overhead is 3 turns or higher, or if her HP drops below 50%. It inflicts Group Accursed Gaze for 3 turns. Similar to her skill 1, it triggers twice if the enemy was already afflicted with Accursed Gaze. This move in particular is very high turn rate. Rage Divine Malison, her EX, very badass name by the way. It is 3 HP attacks with 2 100% splash. It upgrades from Divine Malison, similar to her skills. It extends her own buff durations by 2 turns, and a group inflicts her other debuff, Divine Malison, for 6 turns. So, this debuff in particular lowers the enemy's elemental resist of fire, thunder, water, holy ice, dark water, and earth. I believe that's all the elements, actually. I don't think they skipped any. I'm just gonna list them off just in case I missed an element, but I'm fairly certain that's all the elements there. It inflicts Group Accursed Gaze for 3 turns, and it also triggers twice to enemies already afflicted with Accursed Gaze. Salvation Scythe, her LD, it is 5 AoE HP attacks. It increases her skill 1 use by 1. Interesting. And it also grants 10 turns of her overhead, Shantotto's Rage. It inflicts Group Ruin's Curse for 2 turns. That's her other debuff. When the enemy has this debuff on them, they cannot act. It's a paralysis debuff, that's what it is. The other move that inflicts Ruin's Curse for 2 turns would be her FR, Magia Duo. Fido Hunir, her BT, it lasts for 8 turns. It grants an HP cap up of 50% for herself, and it grants another party HP cap up of 30%. She also enchants everyone with Dark. Her force conditions: you're getting a 30% whenever anyone's using an ability with 1 element or more. You get another 20% whenever Shantotto's the one using an ability with an element or more. Finally, a 30% whenever you're attacking an enemy with a cannot act debuff. Shantotto's pros: you'll be surprised on how many she has. Her damage is actually pretty freaking high. When it comes to single target, she can hold her own easily. Her skill 1 being able to deal a max of 10 HP attacks, adding on top of that her 80% HP cap up for herself. It's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. She can absolutely be your DPS unit if you want her to be. Damage is not the only thing that she can bring. Her FR conditions are also stupid easy. All you need is someone with some sort of element enchant. It doesn't matter which element it is, by the way. If the enemy doesn't take up a lot of turns and you basically always have Shantotto's LD debuff on them, if you have any sort of paralysis debuff on the enemy and anyone attacks, you're getting the full percentage. It's pretty hard to not fulfill all the conditions. Her providing Dark Party Enchant: how many people in this game party Dark Enchant? Like 3 people, if you include Golbez's future rework. It's not a lot of people, unfortunately. So having Shantotto, on top of all her crazy damage, being able to have that as well, it's good. Even though she only party enchants with 1 element, if you have any sort of element on your team, regardless of what it is, her all element imperil is still great. Going back to Shantotto's paralysis, with her new FR being able to also give Ruin's Curse, Shantotto has an adequate amount of paralysis that she can give the enemy. If the enemy isn't, turn hogging a lot, chances are Shantotto's debuff is going to be on them, for most of the fight at least. While it's not on the level of being able to spam it recklessly, more often than not during the fight you can have the paralysis on them. Now lastly with Shantotto, if you've watched the video so far, you can kind of gather that she's a very aggressive DPS unit. But that being said, she does actually have some good secondary auras, especially if you're hitting for elemental weakness. She has a massive aura for that, given from her BT effect. I didn't list it in the video because it's not as important as her other ones, but it's still there and it can be considered as a secondary aura. Definitely can't substitute as your main support still, but still having a little bit of extra aura in your team along with your support unit helps. Let's go to Shantotto's cons. If you can't debuff the enemy at all, don't use her. she's not good. Shantotto is straight up not a good character if you cannot inflict her debuffs on the enemy. Her debuffs enable her damage, her auras, her utility. Basically everything good that she brings to the table, it's because of her debuffs. And if you can't inflict them, she's garbage. Also, with Shantotto, despite the fact that she does have paralysis and an adequate amount of it, if the boss ends up taking a whole lot of turns in the fight, Shantotto's not very good against that. She has no defense, she has no healing. She's very clearly geared towards an offensive team. If you're in dire need of more defensive units, don't pick up Shantotto. She's not good. Third off, her FR, while it is very consistent and more often than not, you're going to be hitting the full numbers, if it's not Shantotto the one that's moving, it's pretty weak. You will only be getting a maximum of 60% every move. And at this day and age, 60% ain't gonna cut it. You want that consistent 80 to 70, at the very least 70%. If you can't do that and you're only hitting 60%, that's no bueno, senor. Lastly, going to her damage, again, as I've said, her damage is very, very good. However, Shantotto shines the most as a single target attacker. That's what you want to think of her as. You don't want to think of her as an AoE, because her AoE damage, while it's suitable, unless you're spamming her LD, FR, and EX consistently, the AoE damage is not exactly there. If you have follow-up damage to complement that, like if you have a core, then you can kind of compensate for it. But if she's attacking by herself, yeah, she does better as a single target than an AoE. My should you pull rating for Shantotto, you might be surprised by this. I'm giving her an A+. There are clearly mechanics that she's not very good at, and there are clearly things that she's struggling in. However, what she does well, she does well. She has great damage, great HP cap ups, great party enchant, great paralysis. She's better than a lot of people will give her credit for. Now, if you don't have any of her weapons and you're thinking of building her, pulling on her, greening her, would I go to that extent for her? Probably not. But if you already have Shantotto's kit from prior as a veteran, and all you need now is the FR, and if you have a lot of BT materials you can use, maybe consider getting her. Thank you guys so much for watching with me. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!